You may think reality is solid. You may think the world you see is fixed, unchanging, independent of you. But what if it isn't? What if the life you're living is not as real as you believe, but instead a projection shaped, bent and edited by your own mind? If that idea makes you uneasy, you might want to stop watching now, because in the next few minutes, you're going to meet a man who devoted his life to proving that consciousness is far more powerful and far more mysterious than science dares to admit. His name is Jacobo Grinberg. Once you hear his story, you will never look at reality the same way again. Grinberg was not a mystic sitting in a cave. He was a trained neuroscientist, a psychologist, and the author of over 50 books. He worked with electrodes, brain scans, and experiments. And yet he said something radical, that our brain doesn't simply receive reality, it creates it, that there is a hidden field of information, always present, and that your consciousness is constantly shaping it into the world you think is out there. A claim so daring, so challenging, that it left both believers and skeptics shaken. In this video, you will discover why Grinberg called attention the most powerful tool we have. You'll see how he used the hologram as a metaphor for the mind's creation of reality. You'll hear about his meetings with shamans, particularly the mysterious healer Pachita, where he witnessed events that seemed to defy science. And you'll learn about the greatest mystery of all, his sudden disappearance in 1994, just as his work was beginning to attract worldwide attention. But this isn't just a story about the past. Grinberg's theory, known as the Syntergic Theory, holds a secret that could change the way you live today. Imagine if every thought, every emotion, every ounce of attention you give is not private, but an act of creation. Imagine realizing that your world bends to the focus of your mind. If true, then the way you think, feel, and see yourself may be the most important force in your reality. That is why this video matters. Not only because it reveals hidden history, but because it asks you to test it for yourself. Most people have never heard these details. You won't often find Grinberg's name in mainstream textbooks. His research is buried, his disappearance unresolved, and his theories controversial. Yet they refuse to die, and if you stay with me until the end, you'll understand why. You'll see how his ideas connect with your own daily life. And you'll leave with a practice so simple that it could shift the way you experience the world, starting tonight. Welcome to Awakened Synchronicity. If you are ready to open your eyes, to question what you've always assumed, and to step into the possibility that consciousness is more powerful than you've ever imagined, then you're in the right place. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a chance to see reality from a new perspective. Before we talk about the mysteries, the theories, and the controversies, we need to ask a simple question. Who was Jacobo Grinberg? To understand why his work still sparks curiosity and debate, we must first know the man behind the ideas. Jacobo Grinberg was born in Mexico City in 1946. From an early age, he was drawn to questions most people avoid. When he was just 12 years old, his mother died unexpectedly, and that painful event ignited a lifelong search. He wanted to know not only why life ends, but what consciousness truly is. That search took him far beyond the boundaries of traditional science. Grinberg studied psychology at the National Autonomous University of Mexico, one of the most respected institutions in Latin America. He didn't stop there. He earned a doctorate in psychophysiology, combining psychology and neuroscience at New York University. By training, he was a scientist. By passion, he was an explorer of the mind. This combination would make his work both fascinating and controversial. During his career, he published over 50 books. Each one pushed the limits of what we think is possible. He wrote about meditation, perception, telepathy, shamanism, and consciousness itself. These were not light topics, but Grinberg approached them with the discipline of a researcher and the curiosity of a seeker. His writing became a bridge between hard science and the spiritual traditions of Mexico and beyond. He was especially interested in altered states of consciousness. Meditation for him was not simply a relaxation tool. It was a doorway into the hidden architecture of the mind. He studied how focused attention could change perception, how silence could alter brain activity, and how inner experience could reshape outer reality. Unlike many academics, he was not afraid to step into territory often dismissed by science. That is why Grinberg also turned toward shamanism. In Mexico, ancient traditions had preserved knowledge about healing and expanded states of awareness. Grinberg spent years studying these practices, documenting them, and even working alongside healers like the legendary Pachita. He believed these experiences revealed something profound about human consciousness, something that standard neuroscience could not explain. All of this fed into his life's central project, the Syntergic Theory. This was his attempt to explain how the brain interacts with a universal field of information to create the world we perceive. Whether people believed it or not, the theory was bold, creative, and far ahead of its time. But then, just as his work was gaining momentum, something happened. In December of 1994, Jacobo Grinberg disappeared. One day he was there, active in his research, and the next he was gone without a trace. No body, no clear answers, only rumors and theories. His vanishing remains one of the great mysteries in modern science and spirituality. This is the man we are about to explore further. A scientist, a seeker, and perhaps a visionary whose life ended or transformed in silence. And with that, we can move into the big question that guided everything he did. What creates our experience of reality? That was the question Jacobo Grinberg asked again and again. For most scientists, the answer seems simple. The brain receives signals from the senses and builds an image of the outside world. But Grinberg was not satisfied with that explanation. He believed there was something deeper, a hidden layer behind what we see. His answer was radical. A field, invisible, yet everywhere, interacts with the brain and shapes what we call reality. He called his proposal the Syntergic Theory. At its core was the idea that there is a universal informational field, something beyond the reach of our senses but fundamental to existence. According to Grinberg, your brain does not simply receive the world like a camera. Instead, it acts as a mixer, taking information from this field and weaving it into the experience you are living right now. In this way, reality is not only perceived, it is actively created. To make this easier to understand, Grinberg often turned to the metaphor of a hologram. A hologram is made when two wave patterns overlap, creating an image that appears three-dimensional. The patterns themselves are not the picture, but when they interfere with each other, the picture emerges. Grinberg suggested the same thing happens with consciousness. The universal field holds endless information. The brain generates its own field. When these two fields interfere, reality as we know it appears, change the interference pattern, and the picture shifts. The hologram metaphor also helped him explain why reality can be so subjective. Two people can look at the same scene, yet experience it differently. According to Grinberg, that is because their brains interact with the universal field in slightly different ways. Their personal interference patterns are not identical. This means each of us is living inside a version of reality constructed by the interaction between the field and our own brain activity. He even described the brain as an interference device. Just as waves can amplify or cancel each other depending on how they meet, the neuronal field generated by the brain interacts with the universal field to produce the vivid, solid world around us. It is not that the world outside does not exist. It is that what we perceive is always filtered, shaped, and reorganized through this process. The idea pushed the boundaries of neuroscience into something almost poetic, but Grinberg was serious in presenting it as science. One of his most striking claims was that attention acts as a kind of editor of reality. Think about what happens when you focus on one detail in a crowded room. The sound of a single voice, the movement of one person. Suddenly, that detail becomes more vivid, more powerful, while everything else fades into the background. For Grinberg, this was not just a psychological trick. It was the actual reshaping of the interference pattern between the brain and the universal field. Attention, emotion, and belief work together to tune the brain's field. That tuning, in turn, changed the world you experience. This idea gave enormous weight to inner life. If your attention is constantly editing reality, then where you place it matters more than you might imagine. Negative emotions, obsessive thoughts, or chaotic focus might shape a reality filled with confusion and pain. Calm attention, clear belief, and steady emotion could create a reality of balance and clarity. Grinberg believed the implications of this were vast, not just for individual lives, but for human society as a whole. Of course, ideas this bold invited curiosity and controversy. Within his circle, there were reports of unusual experiments. Some say he investigated telepathic communication, placing subjects in separate rooms and studying correlations in their brain activity. Others claim he measured strange patterns in EEG recordings, hints that consciousness might be connected across distance. The details remain sketchy, but what is clear is that Grinberg was willing to test boundaries that most researchers would not touch. Even government agencies seemed to take an interest. In the CIA's declassified archives, translations of his work appear, suggesting that his theories were being watched closely during the late Cold War years, when research into consciousness and psychic phenomena was quietly underway in several countries. The fact that his name is present in those files adds yet another layer of intrigue to his already mysterious story. Supporters viewed him as a pioneer who dared to connect science and spirituality. Critics dismissed his theory as speculation without solid evidence. But even those who disagreed with him could not deny that his ideas were unique, creative, and challenging. He was trying to build a bridge between the measurable world of neuroscience and the immeasurable depth of human experience. Grinberg himself seemed aware of the risks. He knew that many would not accept his vision, yet he kept pushing, writing book after book, giving lectures, and encouraging students to explore consciousness directly through meditation and focused attention. For him, the mind was not just a private theater. It was a powerful force, shaping the very stage of reality itself. This was the big question that drove his life's work. What truly creates the reality we live in? His answer was bold, unsettling, and inspiring all at once. A hidden field, ever present, interacting with the brain, forming a holographic tapestry we call the world. A theory where attention becomes creation, belief becomes architecture, and consciousness itself becomes the hidden hand behind existence. And though many debates surround his work, the questions he raised remain alive. To explore them is to step beyond ordinary science and into the unknown, where reality itself waits to be examined, not just with instruments, but with the full focus of the human mind. Among the most controversial chapters in Jacobo Grinberg's journey was his time with a woman known simply as Pachita. To some, she was a healer, carrying the wisdom of Mexico's oldest traditions. To others, she was a fraud. But to Grinberg, she was a living mystery. Pachita was said to perform psychic surgeries, using only a rusty hunting knife, her bare hands, and something she called the Force. Witnesses claimed she could cut into the body without anesthesia, remove organs, and then place new ones, sometimes describing them as materializing from nowhere. The wounds, they said, closed without stitches. Grinberg did not approach her as a believer or skeptic. He came as a scientist. He documented what he saw in notebooks, trying to record every detail. The testimonies are astonishing. Patients walked into Pachita's room sick, broken, or in pain. They lay down on a simple wooden table. The ritual began with prayers, chanting, and invocations of a spirit guide. Then came the knife. By all accounts, she cut into the body as if it were clay, reaching inside with her hands, pulling something out and placing something back in. Moments later, the patient rose and walked away, often reporting healing that modern medicine had not achieved. Grinberg's role was not to prove or disprove, but to observe. He wanted to know whether these extraordinary acts could be understood through his Syntergic theory. If the brain and the universal field interact to create reality, then perhaps Pachita had learned how to shift that interference pattern in ways that made the impossible appear real. He published descriptions of these sessions, sparking fascination and outrage. Supporters claimed his work opened doors to knowledge long ignored by science. Critics said he had fallen into superstition. To this day, the Pachita chapter remains one of the most debated aspects of his career. But it shows something important about Grinberg. He was not afraid to step into the unknown even when it threatened his reputation. Then came December of 1994. At the height of his career, with books published, students inspired and projects underway, Jacobo Grinberg vanished. He did not leave a note. He did not tell anyone where he was going. One day he was there, and the next he was gone. His disappearance left no clear answers. The police opened investigations, but no body was ever found. Some theories said he was kidnapped. Others whispered about government involvement, given his unusual research and his name appearing in intelligence archives. There were even those who speculated that he had stepped into the very field he described, dissolving into the unknown. None of these ideas were confirmed. The truth remains hidden, and that mystery only deepened the fascination with his life. While the story of Pachita and his disappearance attract attention, it is important to pause and listen to the skeptics. Mainstream science does not accept Syntergic theory. For most researchers, the claims are speculative, untested, and lacking solid evidence. Extraordinary stories of psychic surgery are dismissed as illusions or cultural myths. The experiments on telepathy and brain correlations are viewed as flawed or inconclusive. From this perspective, Grinberg's work sits on the fringes, a mixture of imagination and anecdote rather than data and proof. To keep a clear mind, we must hold both sides. We can remain curious, without blindly believing. We can explore ideas without losing the discipline of questioning them. Yet even if one sets aside the boldest claims, there is something deeply practical in Grinberg's vision. If perception is co-created, then your inner state is never just private. It is constantly shaping the world you experience. Attention in this view is not simply focus, it is power. Where you place your mind, your emotions, your beliefs, that becomes the pattern through which reality forms. Whether or not you accept the full scope of Syntergy, the lesson is worth reflecting on. To make this more concrete, imagine a simple practice inspired by his work. Step 1. Quiet. Take a brief moment each day to sit in silence, letting the constant stream of thought slow down. Step 2. Select. Hold one clear scene or identity in your mind, not a vague wish, but a picture you can return to. Step 3. Stabilize. Whenever strong emotions pull you into chaos, return to that image, steadying your inner field. Grinberg believed that attention shapes the interference pattern between brain and reality. By quieting, selecting, and stabilizing, you train your mind to become an intentional co-creator of your experience. This is not doctrine. It is not proof. It is an experiment you can try for yourself. And in that experiment, you begin to see why his ideas refuse to fade. His books are being reissued. His theories are being revisited in documentaries and discussions. Young researchers and spiritual seekers continue to ask the same questions he once asked. What is consciousness? Where does perception come from? Can the mind truly shape the world? The renewed interest shows that Grinberg's legacy is still alive. His story combines science, mystery, spirituality, and intrigue in a way that few others do. Whether people see him as a genius, a dreamer, or a myth, they cannot ignore the impact he left behind. And so his name continues to surface, decades after his disappearance, carried by those who believe the big questions he raised are still waiting for answers. If you've stayed with me until this moment, it means you are ready to look a little deeper. Most people turn away when they hear that reality might not be as solid as it seems. They dismiss it as fantasy, or they fear what it would mean if it were true. But you are still here. That tells me you are open, curious, and maybe even prepared to test the unknown for yourself. Jacobo Grinberg's story is not just about science or mysticism. It's about a choice to see your world as a fixed, external thing, or to see it as something alive, interactive and responsive to your own consciousness. He suggested that attention is more than concentration, it is the lever of creation. Wherever you direct it, the world bends and reshapes itself to match. If that is even partly true, then the smallest shift in how you use your mind could create ripples in your life far greater than you imagine. So here is the choice before you. You can close this video, go back to life as usual, and carry on believing that reality is unchangeable, rigid, and separate from you. Or you can carry forward a new possibility, that your inner state is not just private noise, but the architect of your experience. The calm you practice, the beliefs you hold, the focus you sharpen, these may be shaping your days in ways you have yet to notice. Keep your mind calm, aim your attention with care, then watch quietly and without forcing how reality answers back. Try it for a single day. Catch yourself when you spiral into worry, and instead stabilize your focus on a clearer, calmer image of what you want. Not with desperation, not with struggle, but with steady presence. And then notice if the world shifts, even in small ways. Meet you there. Grinberg did not want blind followers. He wanted explorers. He wanted people willing to step beyond old assumptions and discover directly what consciousness can do. That invitation is open to you now. If you choose it, you are not just remembering his legacy, you are living it. And if you feel ready for the next step, stay connected with us. On this channel, Awaken Synchronicity, we continue to uncover the hidden stories, the forgotten teachings, and the powerful practices that challenge the way we think about life. Together we explore not only what reality is, but how you can shape it from within. So if this resonated with you, if you found even one idea here worth carrying into your own life, then let us know. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next step in this journey, and share this with someone who you think might be ready to open their eyes. The choice is yours. Look away or look within. If you've watched this far, you already know which path you're on.